So here we have a story. This is now a week before Holy Week. It's a week before the final stages of Jesus' life. He is in Bethany, which is his base camp, if you will, for the whole Holy Week. This is where he's going to be staying with his disciples. And from there, they will then walk up the Mount of Olives back down into Jerusalem, which takes an hour to an hour and a half. And this is where they're going to be. So they're settling in. The disciples are settling in. Jesus is, Mary and Martha, they're doing the hospitality thing. And one of the things that's happening, the environment around them is starting to become a bit pitched. There is some tension in the air. And Mary, who's pretty insightful, she recognizes that Jesus is probably suffering from a little bit of anxiety. He is known to suffer from that from time to time. And so what does she do? She does an act of compassion. And she massages his feet so that he might relax with this wonderful perfume or whatever it is. And it fills the air, and it's a wonderful thing. And Jesus he's enjoying it, to be sure. And then Judas, he just wants to put a damper on the whole thing. But here's the thing. Jesus said to Judas, he says, she's doing this for me, and you're always going to have the poor with you. Now, this is a key statement. Jesus says you will always have the poor with you. Properly translated, it's not just this big sociological statement. It means if you are a follower of mine, you will have the poor with you. That is the mission field. And that's where we need to be. To be a disciple of Jesus. It's important to be on the side of the poor. The follower of Jesus should understand poverty and its effect. Become fully familiar with it. The Christian, properly following Jesus, should work tirelessly to alleviate poverty. Politically, economically, socially, religiously, to work to alleviate poverty and how it comes to pass. This, for Jesus, is the good news for the poor, but also the good news for all people. Because as we experience God's grace and we work in the dimension of shalom, we are fed as we feed others. We experience a dimension of God's grace that is nothing short of a mountaintop experience. All within our reach. We must be in solidarity with the poor. It's not a question of someone's better than another person. We're all even in God's eyes, right? There's so much wisdom. There's so much that we can learn and understand as we grow closer and closer to the poor. And within all this, we are reminded what Jesus said at that table the last night of his life. And he said, if you serve the least of these, you are serving me. Another reinforcement. This is what it means to follow Jesus. To serve is not to judge, but to be in community. Now, in the U.S., we have our share of poverty, as every nation in the world does. But I think it's important to note that we are a part of the Organization for Economic Development. And these are 26 nations that are industrialized, A and B nations. I mean, they're industrialized, they have some of the same challenges we have. And our poverty rate amongst those 26 is the highest of the 26. And the reason for that is it's pretty straight up why we would have a little higher poverty rate than the average. When properly evaluated, our safety net is weaker than everybody else. It's cause and effect. And as I sit here, or stand here, or speak here, there's concern that it could become even weaker. Now, here's a bold question. Should the Christian know more about the Bible or poverty? Even? It's just a question. We know what it means to follow Jesus, and we get the answers in the Bible. But it's important for us to move beyond the bounds of the four walls of the church. It's important to not listen to anyone who casts shade on poverty and the people who are in it, or the people who are trying to help. That's some weird spiritual stuff that people can get swept away in. We're in a battle, we always are. The Christian must stand firm. Now, the best way to understand is to be and live with the poor. And certainly, to listen to the poor.
Started with an empty refrigerator.
At age 4, I was taken away from my mom due to poverty. It was a neglect charge due to not having enough food in the refrigerator. Someone was upset with my mom and called CPS, and we were taken away from her, placed in a home.
Love Dixon says this is what sent her and her sister into the system, where she says she'd traded her mother's love for instability and abuse.
I was aged out of foster care at 18, so I was basically homeless and had no one, so I had to figure out how I could survive at that point.
But she says she had no real skills, no support network, not even a high school diploma. So she says she took GED classes over and over again.
Once I came to Richmond, it took me some time because I didn't have enough money to pay for the test, which was $56. That may not be much for some people, but at the time I was struggling.
Dixon has also known homelessness. She says despite having excellent credit and no negative rental history, her small disability check and supplemental income were not close to 3 times the rental amount required for most apartments.
At times I was living with strangers. I went on Craigslist at the time, and these things didn't work out because the one person was like, I just want your money. I don't want you here. Some people didn't want me to use their refrigerator. If you don't have a refrigerator or can't use the kitchen, those things are essential for actually saving money.
So having to buy food that was more expensive and often less healthy than what she might prepare, and having to endure the unkindness of random roommates. Dixon shares her story now with the desire to help those who've never experienced poverty to understand more and maybe discriminate less against those who feel like outsiders because their pockets are mostly empty in a country where they are surrounded by relative wealth that many take for granted.
Like transportation, I walked a lot, late for places that I needed to be. Found out that I had to be super early because I never knew what was going to happen. And in some places were dangerous to walk. I had to really suck it in and just go to where I need to go and block out everything, protect myself. So it's like nobody should be hungry because there's so many food banks. However, you have to walk to the food bank, you have to get there on time, and you might be at work. I had a big duffel bag suitcase with wheels on it. So I had to put all of my food in that duffel bag with wheels on it and tug it along, sometimes 4 miles to where I live because they were in my area. I felt ashamed. Sometimes I would tell people, I'm a person too. It was dehumanizing. Even when I went to school, J. Sergeant Reynolds and VCU at one point, and I was grateful for being in these spaces. And I saw how they didn't think about the things that I was thinking about at the time. They was like, why is your stomach always hurting? And I didn't want to tell anyone. But my stomach was hurting because I was taking medicine without food.
Dixon says things are better now as she's acquired more skills and work experience and expanded her support network. She can barely count on just one hand the number of jobs she works, many of them centered on helping others. Even as she continues moving forward, Dixon has known financial struggle all her life.
I know what it is to have a demon on you and you can't seem to shake it.
For Debbie Webb, the darkness of drug addiction descended upon her.
I was married for 25 years. I lost all 7 of my kids. I went through not paying my light bill because I chose to smoke drugs. I went through stealing from my mom. I did a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to do, but
Webb is quick to accept responsibility for the choices she's made and the consequences that have derailed her time and time again. Yet financial strife can make its way to anyone, even the most responsible, especially if they have no support network available to help.
There is no one reason why people find themselves in need of help, but if people find themselves in need of help, the strength is that there's someone to help them.
Webb has found her way forward because she says of this rescue mission in Roanoke, where they serve up sustenance for the mind and spirit for hundreds who have unmet needs.
It begins with recognizing that the person across from you can be and could be you, that it is us and we, and that it's not just that individual's challenge, but it's yours as well because you could be in that position. And I think for all of us, if we find ourselves in an emergency, whatever it might be, the greatest good is done when we realize that there are other people who want to help. Thank you. Come on guys.
Carl Stewart mentors, encourages, and helps provide hope, which he says is the crucial requirement that allows those exhausted by struggle to keep going in the quest to build better lives.
What if your income couldn't support the insurance for a car or the money to fix it? Now you have to consider not only I can't get to the store, I can't get to my job, and buses don't run 7 days a week. Then think about this, identification. It's not just one ID, you need 2. Suppose you don't have that. Without that, you can't get a bank account. We assume everybody has a smartphone. We assume everybody has the ability to get to a computer to fill out a job application. As long as people have hope, as long as they have an opportunity to believe that things can be better, I believe people will do better. And some of the challenges then that we see, like substance abuse, some of the symptoms that are publicized that deal with poverty, I believe those things will be abated. They'll go away simply because people have hope. And it's a powerful cure for a lot of things that we see.
my apartment is right around the corner. Not only that, I have a job. And the cocoon is just growing. And there's a butterfly coming about because all that I've went through this program.
Love Dixon is on that journey as well, newly married and with a place to call home. Yet she urges others to recognize that poverty is not something that most people actively choose, that being without money and without support complicates life in ways that are hard to grasp unless you've walked in those shoes, that can't afford to stop and rest, that having to pay more, to accept less, and go without is
It's exhausting. You have to be very creative. You have to think on your feet. It's not only a physical battle, it's a mental battle. Even if you don't care what people think, you still have to do the things you need to do to survive.
And ultimately, the cost is counted in dollars, but the constant stress also exacts a price from the minds, bodies, and spirits of those who walk that hard road.
Thank you for watching. Continue to follow Virginia news and stories by subscribing to our VPM YouTube channel.
All right. You need to have hope. And here's the thing, folks. I know all of you here are already engaged in some way to help others through the ministries of St. John and a variety of other organizations and ministries that you are a part of. And that's good because we have a base to build upon. And the challenge is to understand that much more about what the need is, because the more we understand the need, the more compassion will well up within us and the more we will be willing to do. Sue Liddums, Pastor Sue, had mentioned 2 weeks ago that she had done so much work for 20 or some odd years in I think Children's and Receiving Hospital in Detroit, where there's a lot of poverty. And as a chaplain, what she was saying was, with respect to racism, with respect to poverty, the more you are in it, the more it seeps into your soul. And the more you almost intuit it, you understand it in a new, powerful way. So I invite us to simply learn more, to begin to understand more, to recognize that this is really the mission field that Jesus has called us into. And in doing that, you become the good news. You become the hope. You are the ones that can come to the rescue. But as we do this, we realize that God is waiting for us, that we are fed in unique ways, and we are taught by the poor important lessons maybe we forgot years ago. And so God is in our midst. We have this opportunity to share the good news. Yes, we will have the poor with us. The question becomes, how do we become community with it? Amen.